And, well, there's an election going on. As you know, it's 1 week from today is election day. And on the line with us is Steve Beaman. He's a conservative, a CEO, an entrepreneur, an investor, a philanthropist, a chairman of the Society to Advance Financial Education. His website is stevebeaman, BEAMAN.com. And you can tweet him at Steve, STEVEBEAMAN, Steve Beaman. Steve, welcome back.
Well, Tom, it's always wonderful to be with you. I enjoy the back and forth we do.
Well, thank you. So I'm looking here at Salman Rushdie's Facebook page, and he says, so to recap, Donald Trump will go on trial in November accused of racketeering, and again in December he's going on trial accused of child rape. He is a sexual predator, hasn't released his tax returns, and has used his foundation's money to pay his legal fees, for which there may be another trial. He has abused the family of a war hero. And, but let's talk about some emails that Hillary didn't send from somebody else's computer that weren't a crime anyway. Newsweek has an article about Donald Trump's companies destroyed emails in defiance of court orders, how thousands, apparently tens, if not hundreds of thousands of emails and other documents have been destroyed by the Trump organization that both the IRS and others want to get to. So I understand you're quite concerned that if Donald Trump is elected, that and indicted, well, he's already been indicted, actually. He's got 2 trials coming up, so it's not even an investigation, that might have some sort of a negative effect on the stock market. Do I have that right?
Well, I think both sides do. I think we've got, and Tom, you and I could go back and forth on which of these candidates is dirtier, but there's no love lost on either side. But the markets right now,
well, to the best of my knowledge, there are no, Hillary Clinton is not facing any trials. Donald Trump is actually on trial.
Oh, I know.
You already have prosecutors who've already conducted investigations and found that the level of criminality that Trump is engaged in is high enough that it should be put before a jury. Nobody's alleging that about Hillary Clinton in any regard with any topic.
Well, let's do a show on that sometime. But I want to go to your point because the markets ultimately affect people in their retirement and in their day-to-day lives. Sure. And what you've got right now is an enormously skittish market. They're concerned that, this election is going to go the direction you're saying on either side. The House is already talking about impeachment proceedings if Hillary's elected. I mean, it's just a mess on both sides. So right now we've got a market that's skittish. They're worried on Trump's side about trade wars. We tried that under the Smoot-Hawley stuff in the 30s. It didn't work. It won't work this time. And so they're kind of looking way in the balance here on who's going to really pull this out, saying, well, on either side, we're a little bit concerned. The Fed is holding off. They had another meeting today. They're going to hold off a rate decision until December, but all bets are they're going to raise in December. So I would say you're going to see an incredibly volatile market from now until we get through this thing next week.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. And I think if the Fed raises interest rates without a corresponding change in fiscal policy coming out of Congress, you're going to see some real serious problems, like a big crash.
Well, I would agree with you. I mean, right now we're spending $200 billion a year on interest payments. If you take rates from 1 to 4%, that jumps to $800 billion,
right,
which is significant.
Which then becomes serious money. Yeah, no, I don't disagree with any of that. And what I'm looking at here is that the Republican Party, when they have power, for example, during the Reagan presidency, the second year of the Reagan presidency saw the biggest crash, the biggest recession since the Great Depression, and the Republicans got us out of this by using Keynesian economics, by borrowing and spending. Ronald Reagan tripled the national debt, expanded the government larger than any president outside of wartime had in the 20th century, and it worked. It produced the government stimulus. So Obama comes into office, and we actually are having a crisis and do need fiscal stimulation. And the Republicans they're sitting around bragging about how for 7.5 years they've blocked any effort to put the economy back in recovery mode.
Well, Tom, the facts aren't really there. I don't disagree with you on the Reagan thing, but I will tell you in the last 8 years, we've obviously seen stimulus. The federal debt has grown from $9 to $19 trillion. That's $10 trillion.
He put 2 wars on credit cards. He didn't even put them on the budget. He put a tax break for billionaires that cost over $2 trillion. Didn't put that on the federal budget. I mean, this.
And Medicare Part D, which was a bad idea.
And Medicare Part D, Medicare Part D is a $600 billion a decade subsidy to the pharmaceutical companies that the Republicans gerrymandered so that the government could not negotiate drug prices. Yeah, you're right.
Well, but even I want to go back and again.
But my point is that I don't think any of this has to do with politics, Steve. Bill Clinton was impeached and tried in the Senate, impeached in the House and tried in the Senate. And what did the market do in the late 90s? It continued to go up.
Well, that was a technology boom that was going on. That's a once in a lifetime thing,
No, what I'm
frankly.
saying
That
is I
had
don't
nothing
think the
to do with
markets pay that
politics.
much attention to politics unless you're talking about, well, even, you know, I mean, even the possibility of a president being removed from office didn't phase the markets.
Well, they do, but they look at the fundamentals more. Hey, real quick, the last time I was on, I made a comment about community banks being decreasing in time, and we
Hmm.
had a little go back. I wanted to give you my reason for that. It caught me off guard, and I didn't have this. Part of research on that comes out of the New York Times, by the way, who just published an article talking about having watched an 18% growth in regulation since Dodd-Frank. We've seen a 14% decline in community banks. So I just wanted to bring that up because
Yeah,
that's
it's
not totally a
correlation. It's not
fantasy.
causation, though. Most of the causation for the decline in community banks is not the number of banks, it's the number of owners. What you're seeing is consolidation. We're seeing
Because of
this in
regulatory
virtually every
costs, the
sector of our
smaller
economy.
banks can't afford to operate.
No,
I
it's
mean,
that,
we
well,
well
you
let
could
me go
argue
down
that
that.
that's the reason they're consolidating,
It's
but I'd say
part of
that they're consolidating to make more money.
well, it's also, I mean, we look at the stock market. If you go back to the 90s, we had 7,500 public companies. Today, we have only 4,000. And that's because the cost of going public has become
No, it's
egregious.
not. There's a great piece about that in yesterday's Financial Times, Steve. I encourage you to check it out. It's
I read that
because
article.
of consolidation.
I agree, but
You know,
it's
what is
also
this new
because
company? AT&T, Time Warner, AOL. It's going to have like 17 names. It's going to control, you know,
Tom, I
what
don't
used to be over
disagree
30
with
public
that.
companies, if my
But let's
memory
not
serves me
negate.
right.
I live in the world of small business, and I can tell you the cost of going public is stopping companies from doing it. They'd rather go the private equity route. They'd rather go with a sale to a larger company because the cost of going public and the liability is just too steep. Nobody wants to do it.
Well, given the kind of damage that public companies are doing to our economy and they're doing to our populace, I mean, look at these monopolies. You know, our food is terrible. We're having explosions of cancer because of big ag.
We're so bad off. We live longer than ever before.
No,
we have
actually,
more
we
wealth.
don't. The top 10% are living longer than ever before, but the bottom 90% are actually living, if you exclude child mortality, infant mortality, if you take that one number out, the bottom 90% of Americans are living roughly the exact same lifespan as they were in 1900, 130, 120 years ago. I mean, look it up.
So,
The only people
I
living
think that's
longer
an
are the people in the
interesting
top 10%.
But I
And
think
that's only a
I
2-year
believe that
increase.
public companies are helping people retire. Their 401ks benefit when these companies do well. You and I've talked
No,
about
these
that.
public companies, they've been ripping people off, you know, taking their pensions. Once Reagan changed the rules on how pensions had to be accounted for, all the, you know, what was Eastern was one of the first to use bankruptcy to steal the pension money from their employees.
There are
TWA,
always bad
Carl
players
Icahn.
in any system. But if you say government's more honest than business, I got a bridge to sell you to nowhere.
Oh, really?
Government historically
Government is accountable to we the people. Business is accountable to its stockholders.
Government's not accountable to anybody. Business is accountable to the marketplace, at least. There is a governor on it. You don't have to go to a business. You can not buy their product. But government, you got to use them.
Yeah, good luck trying to not buy their products when they're the only cable line that's coming into your house, or the only electricity line that's coming into your house, or the only water line. But anyway, Steve Beaman, conservative CEO, entrepreneur, stevebeaman.com, BEAMAN.com is his website. Society to Advance Financial Education.org as well. And you can tweet him at Steve Beaman. Steve, thanks for dropping by.
Thank you, Tom.
We'll be back.